keep it live, that's right. From Pennsylvania to across the globe, it's time for this Steelers All-Star Show.
Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by my co-host Nick Pretzel. Nick, how are you doing this kind of warming up Saturday morning, this wonderful Valentine's Day, the day of love?
James, it's wonderful. Love is in the air. We're thawing out. The frozenness is all going away. The NFL season is officially over. We're going to be covering the Super Bowl briefly today and also some strange but yet interesting off-season news that's going on. But, James, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well, man. I'll tell you what. I'm much better than yesterday. It was a horrible work day, but glad that's all behind me. I don't have too many of those. So what I love is a little bit of energy first thing in the morning.
There we go.
That's what I'm looking forward to today, is treating myself, cooking for myself, doing things for me and the dogs, and just enjoying that. I hope you spoil that wife of yours today.
We're doing our celebration tomorrow, so we did a little bit of a pre-celebration, and we're going to do another celebration tomorrow. Saturday is just a little bit of an easier day for us to get some errands done, so we're postponing our celebration. So I certainly will be, and I know, James, that your sweetheart is looking down on you and smiling today as well. So in terms of Steelers news, though, or Super Bowl news, rather, we're pretty excited because the Steelers are still number one, unfortunately tied with the Patriots, but still number one in terms of Super Bowl wins all time.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Super Bowl worked out the way all of us had hoped to, at least all of us here at Steelers by the Lake. Jill, unfortunately, can't make it with us with more cheer responsibilities. Cody woke up sicker than a dog this morning and throwing up. So if you're friends with Cody, reach out to him. Tell him you hope he feels better. I'm sure he'll be perfectly fine, though. Just work weeks catch up with all of us. But what caught up with the Patriots is playing a weak schedule, right? They did
Absolutely
not have a very stiff competition throughout the regular season. When they did face good teams like our Steelers, they lost. And then, that playoff stretch before going to the Super Bowl, they had the toughest team they played was probably the Broncos, and that was without their starting quarterback. So not exactly an even matchup there. They played the Texans just like we did. C.J. Stroud laid the worst goose egg he's ever laid in his life against them. So just not a very difficult path for the Patriots to get to the Super Bowl, which is a rare thing, to be honest with you. But boy, did they go up against it when they saw this defense of the Seattle Seahawks, huh, Nick? They were just
absolutely.
They were like piranhas, and there was blood in the water, man. These dudes were all over poor Drake May this entire game. And I did kind of feel bad for him a little bit because he didn't have time to breathe, let alone think and try to throw a pass. All their points were in garbage time at the end of the game in the final 4.5 minutes. So the 29-13 score is a lot closer than this game actually was, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And just another little tidbit that I encountered as I was going through my various doom scrolling and encountering different Super Bowl breakdowns and all of those types of things. Drake May had, I believe, 23 turnovers in the postseason, and the teams he played against had 20.
No.
So, I mean,
he had 23 turnovers in the postseason?
I think that's what I heard.
That's a ton, man.
It might have been 23 turnover plays. I could be wrong.
Maybe 2 turnover-worthy plays, maybe.
That might have been it.
That would have been like 6 turnovers a game.
He had 2 in the Super Bowl, 2 interceptions there, and was sacked 6 times. So, I mean, it's hard to believe they even made it there with that many turnover-worthy plays. I don't remember exactly who was breaking that down or where I saw that, but just to be having so many. It might have been negative plays too. They might have just been including sacks or something along those lines.
Well, and you're right. He's got 2 interceptions thrown and 1 fumble loss. So he turned it over 3 times in that game.
Yep, and then 6 sacks as well for. It's not giving me how many yards they lost there, but not a stellar performance at all. And you got to give the kid some credit. He is still just in his sophomore season, so Definitely some rookie jitters there. And same thing for Will Campbell. I know I've been ragging on him. A lot of people have been ragging on him because he was just letting Drake May get on blast all night. And he was, crying and as he was drafted saying, I'm going to lay my life on the line for my quarterback. And it looked like he kind of just laid down in front of his quarterback instead during this game. So, I mean, we've been giving him some crap, but rookies tend to cave under some of the pressure in their first NFL season. And to make it to the Super Bowl, I mean, again, a bit of a kiddie schedule to get there. But even so, they got there. And so, I mean, yeah, it was a tough matchup for them, and I'm glad it was because we didn't want the Patriots getting ahead of us. But I have a feeling the Patriots are going to still be around for a little while. We'll see what they do in the draft. Mike Vrabel's a solid coach. I have a feeling they're going to still be around for a little while. So I know Cam Newton said they're like not even in the top 8, but I have a feeling that with Vrabel at the helm, they're still going to make some moves, and they're still going to be around for a little while again, which is unfortunate because they were just around for the past 10 plus years. So
yeah, I don't really take a lot of stock in anything Cam Newton says, to be honest with you. The guy kind of seems to have gone off the deep end. But you're right to talk about Will Campbell in this because you just picked the worst game to have his bad game as a pass protector. And when you're the blindside protector, the left tackle for your quarterback, especially a young one like Drake May, it's kind of important that you hold up. And this is why when we go through our pre-draft process, a lot of you are going to get sick of me talking about arm length at specific positions. Offensive line, it's really important, especially offensive tackle. Why? Because when you get these speed guys and these guys that can get up that edge on you quickly, your arm length is what allows you to slow them down and reroute them. When you can't get in contact with them before they get where they want to be, they've already got a beat to the quarterback before you can even try to disrupt their momentum. That's why arm length is so important, is you're trying to bump them off of their momentum, push them wider than they're trying to go, slow them down on the way through. So that was the big thing on Will Campbell was, is he going to be better suited as a guard due to the lack of length? From what I saw in this game, man, you might want to just kick him inside right now and readdress that tackle position because I think he's a really good player personally. But I also think he's going to have one heck of a time against anybody who's got a good speed rush that can get up the arc against him. And guys with length are just going to always give him problems. And your elite pass rushers in the NFL have good speed up the edge and they have good length. So that's going to be a problem for him. But I feel like the left guard was a bigger problem. Also a rookie in Jared Wilson. I saw a clip that somebody put together on TikTok kind of breaking down the offensive line issues in the game for the Patriots. The Seahawks figured out this kid's tell. He had a tell in pass protection that he was looking physically at his assignment in pass blocking reps, even in run blocking reps sometimes, before the snap. So they knew exactly who he was going to try to block. So they would have that person fake and then go away. He's falling and somebody run right through his hole. Over and over and over, the pressure came right through that left guard and left tackle area. It was just like a giant hole in that offensive line. His entire blind side just betrayed him. So I think that can be fixed. You can probably teach better eye discipline where maybe his head's sitting forward and he's only looking with his eyeballs, or just not looking at all and just looking straight into the ground. I don't know. But I'm sure there's a way you can coach that kind of mistake out of him. But the Seahawks organization figured that out pre-game and exposed it all game long. They were beating him with corners and safeties right past his face, just running right by him. The only guy I saw with issues like that this year was Daniel Falele. You saw that with the Ravens right guard. Where guys were just too quick and ran right by him. He just couldn't move his feet quick enough to get in front of guys and slow them down, even though he's one of the most massive humans in the entire NFL. Jared Wilson's a regular-sized dude. He's 6'3", 311. That's a very normal-sized guard. That's not small, that's not big. It's just a normal-sized dude these days. So I don't think that it's a foot speed issue. I don't think it's a lack of ability issue. I think he just had a tell. They exposed it, and New England didn't figure it out before the game was over, and it's too late at that point.
And to highlight a thing you said there, James, about Campbell being maybe potentially a better guard, we'll talk about that a lot in the offseason too, especially as we're going through a lot of these prospects, because we both were just talking pre-show, and we would like to see Pittsburgh address the offensive line a little bit in this draft, whether that's some depth pieces or some early on capital going towards potential starters. The arm length doesn't matter as much at guard because you don't have to set that edge. You're not worried about a speed guy getting around you as much because you have help on either side, either your center or the tackle. So you don't have to extend as far with those arms, and it's not as important as it is for the tackle who might be needing to set that edge.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if Campbell gets shifted into guard. We'll see what happens when we start talking about a lot of these prospects of, oh, here's a tackle with shorter arms who might shift to guard, or, oh, here's a tackle with guard experience. His arms are shorter, might be pointing a sign there. And I know I'm one of the people who very often is like, let's not move the linemen from where they are because Pittsburgh's had such a problem with that. But
yeah.
The more I've come to understand about physicality in the trenches, it can be, and it sometimes is the best move, especially if you're a shorter armed guy, to be shifted into that guard position, especially if you've played it before, to have a little bit of experience there.
Yeah, and a lot of what Nick's mentioning there is because those opponents you're going about against also don't have as long arms. A lot of the interior defensive linemen are on the interior because they lack the length to be on the outside. They lack the explosiveness to be on the outside. Now, when you go against those elite defensive linemen, you're in trouble because guys like Cam Hayward, they're in that 35-inch long plus category, which is why that bull rush looks so effective sometimes with Cam, he gets to go, not only is he a massively strong individual, but when he gets into the chest of somebody that he's got 2 or 3 inches arm length in a difference, in a deficit to the offensive lineman and in the positive for him, it's an extreme advantage because you can have your palms into somebody's chest, pushing them back, and they're kind of trying to scrape at you with fingernails and not even getting there. So it allows you to really use all of your power before the other guy can even get into any of his power. So extreme advantage with that. Doesn't mean that that's the long arm guy always wins. It's not the case. But it is definitely something that's an attribute to guys. Another thing that's an attribute is having a solid running game, huh?
Yeah. Kenneth Walker looking like vintage Le'Veon Bell out there. Very patient running through holes, finding those gaps where his linemen were providing for him, and then just bursting through and making it a gash every time to that Patriots defense. He would constantly rip off a 9+ yard run and then set up the offense for short yardage situations on second, third down when you didn't have to worry about what you were doing. You can just take some shots and let the play develop. And it really kind of opened up the offense, and it got him the Super Bowl MVP, which I still think should have gone to Myers. He had the most points of any kicker ever in the Super Bowl. So, but good on you, Kenneth Walker. And it shows that when you have a solid run game and you have solid receivers, I mean, we talked about this a little bit pre-show too. You don't have to have a quarterback that's out there winning the game for you. If you can get a solid game manager quarterback who doesn't commit these penalties or these turnovers, you're able to then win the game. I mean, Darnold threw for 1 touchdown in this game. He was only sacked once, but he didn't turn the ball over. So that's really all you need when you've got a good defense and an offense that's firing on all cylinders. And Pittsburgh has, for the most part, had that good defense. They just haven't been able to adjust much. So hopefully Patrick Graham can come in and make that change to be able to be like, all right, we're going to make adjustments to what people are doing and be able to disguise some coverages and make it so that the defense isn't one-dimensional. And then if we can just get the pieces on the offense to give Aaron or Will Howard or Mason Rudolph or whoever's at the helm this year a little bit more of an effective passing attack, and we're not just throwing behind the sticks all the time, which works when it's working, but once you do it too much, it gets, again, one-dimensional. Hopefully we can see Pittsburgh have the same type of success that the Seahawks had, because we're not too far away from a similar roster to what they have.
And it seems to be a similar strategy in Pittsburgh, right? This is the second year in a row that it was a dominant defense and a dominant run game, and that's how the team won the football game. That has been the Steelers' approach for a long time. And people said over and over, you got to pass the ball. If you don't have a dominant passing game, you're not going to win Super Bowls. Well, the last 2 Super Bowls in a row were won by teams with a dominant defense and a very good rushing attack. That's what Pittsburgh has strive to be for years now, especially coming into this era where the quarterback play hasn't been as good. Sam Darnold had a great regular season, but this Super Bowl was not his best game. Realistically, you're talking about a 50% completion in this game. He missed a lot of throws, but what I was impressed with was Sam Darnold was his ability to move within the pocket and be strong while doing so. That's why, when you go back to like old footage of Ben, he was great at breaking tackles while maintaining his eyes down the field and moving in the pocket. Just shrugging his shoulders one direction or another and getting these pass rushers to kind of fall off of him, staying square and still getting a good throw off. That's the part that Sam was missing. He was getting guys to shrug off of him, making the throw, but then missing the throw. So once he gets to that recalm yourself, repoise yourself, make the throw, he's got the first part down. That dude was strong in the pocket. These guys couldn't get him to the ground. He only got sacked one time. He got hit a decent amount. They brought the heat on him. Guys were hitting Sam Darnold, but he was moving. He was shrugging him off. He was stiff-arming him, recentering himself, throwing the ball downfield and getting it out, not taking the negative play. So we'll give Sam credit for that one. You don't necessarily have to be a Superman. You don't have to be Patrick Mahomes. You don't have to be Tom Brady to win a Super Bowl. Like you said, Trent Dilfer won them too, right?
Absolutely.
So you just have to not make a lot of mistakes. And when you look at this game, that's a big difference quarterback-wise. Sam Darnold didn't make the mistakes. Drake May did make the mistakes. And I know Seattle was only putting up field goal after field goal. There's probably certain folks that probably would say something to the extent of Seattle didn't win this game as much as the Patriots lost it by giving it away and constantly turning the ball over and not being able to sustain drives until the final 4 minutes of the game. I think it's a fair argument. This one, the Patriots played a very poor game until the game was basically over. But I'm also not mad at the Seattle's defense for allowing 13 garbage points when the game was already over and it didn't matter. So
Yeah.
that would be kind of silly to be mad at them when they played such a good game and then just were in a prevent defense at the end because it didn't really matter.
Yeah, and it reminds me of our conversations throughout the year, and I think I even texted you during the Super Bowl, like how it reminded me of our games against Miami, and not in the same regard, but our game against the Lions. This Super Bowl should be very encouraging for Pittsburgh Steelers fans. And I mean, that's why I'm talking about it because, we're a Steelers podcast and this is a Steelers show. So if you're listening, I hope you're a Steelers fan. If you're not, welcome. Maybe you should come to be a Steelers fan because it's great over here. But it's very reminiscent of it because the defense was lights out and then gave up some points towards the end. But you played a whole game and you were on the field most of the time because the offense was firing on all cylinders. And so you were scoring points. Then the defense has to go back out there. So, I mean, you can't really fault them for letting up points in garbage time, especially when they still played lights out and won that game. Really, really solid by Seattle's defense. And just to highlight Darnold again and how he wasn't really all that impressive in the game, but he didn't let the team down either. He was that game manager quarterback that you often see people knocking because it's like, this guy's not going to elevate your team to the next level. He's just going to not lose you the game. It's like, that's really all you need a lot of the time. Is you don't need a guy that's going to go out there and be a superhero. That's your job. Look at Josh Allen. He's a superhero for that team, but they can never make it all the way because the team is essentially Josh Allen and they rely on him to win them the games. Same thing with, in recent years, Patrick Mahomes. After losing Tyreek Hill and not having that X wide receiver along with his star tight end, they haven't been able to make, they made it again, but they lost in like dramatic fashion to the Eagles. And then this year they didn't even make the playoffs. So, when you have those types of quarterbacks, you still need to have the pieces around them to elevate yourself to go all the way to the Super Bowl. Whereas if you just build a really good team and then put in a quarterback who's not going to screw that up, you have more longevity. You have the ability to bring in more guys like that if the contract ends up expiring and they go in a different direction, to be able to be like, hey, we've got this really solid roster. All we need you to do is not screw it up. And
Mm-hmm.
it got them their second Lombardi. But to touch on Sam real quick again, like you said, exactly 50% completion percentage, or actually even a little less, maybe it might look like.
No, right on.
Right on the money.
Yep.
And then 202 passing yards, which isn't a crazy amount. 1 touchdown, 1 sack, rating of 74.7. Drake May's rating was 79.1, despite the 2 touchdowns and the fumble and the 6 sacks. So, I mean, Kenneth Walker ran for 135 yards. You have that offensive line to be able to block for Walker. You have JSN, who's doing a stellar job. You have Cooper Kupp, who showed up when JSN was sidelined for a little bit with a potential concussion. So, and then Rashid Shaheed, who was also able to separate down the field. So if you've got a solid offense and a solid defense, you don't really need to worry about who your quarterback is. Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts for most of his career, as people like to say. And now he's a Super Bowl champion and ahead of Lamar Jackson, ahead of Josh Allen, ahead of Baker Mayfield, like all these quarterbacks from the same draft class who are touted to be so much better. They've got their MVPs, well, not Baker Mayfield. He's got his Heisman, but Sam Darnold has the Lombardi.
Yeah, and Baker, you got to give him credit. He did break the rookie passing record for most touchdowns by a rookie when he came out. So he started out hot, and he's had some good moments here and there since then. Baker hasn't been a complete flop there. The Browns would be in a much better situation if they would have hung on to him personally.
Yeah, and none of those quarterbacks from that class are. It's just none of them have gone all the way. And Darnold was thought to be the last one that would ever go all the way. And here he is standing atop them all. So kudos to Sam and the team around him that helped him get there. Yeah,
absolutely. And that was the Josh Rosen year too, though. So we did get one out of the group. But if you enjoy our show, if you enjoy Steelers talk, if you enjoy football talk in general, we do have a partnership with a group called the Hardcore Sports Network. We do a Sunday morning live show every Sunday at 10 a.m. And you're able to actually, in the comment section, ask questions, join in the conversation while we're doing it. I'm on there every Sunday along with some other guys. One of them is a guy by the name of Bo Crouch, who played some football, reports on the Seahawks. A lot of Philadelphia Eagles guys. It's kind of a Philadelphia Eagle network that they joined us in with. They asked us to join. We said, sure. I've been doing that for about a year and a half now, and those guys are a lot of fun. So feel free to join us anytime on that. And the only reason I bring that up right now, outside of, it's a good time for folks, we predicted our scores and we predicted our MVPs for the game. And boy, if I didn't tell everybody, look out for Kenneth Walker to have a big game and win the MVP. I don't toot my own horn too often. I'm going to on this one because I nailed it. So there you go. Last year I said Cooper DeJean would get 2 pick sixes on their show. He got 1 in the Super Bowl. So I was 1 short on you guys. So you might want to listen to what we've got to say before the Super Bowl, because the track record's starting to get pretty serious around here.
It's almost like James knows ball. That being said, we do have another partnership, and I do want to give a special shout out to the owner of the Edinburgh Hotel Bar. Pat's birthday was yesterday, so happy birthday to you, Pat. We appreciate you on the show, and James is going to tell you all a little bit more about our sponsor and friends, the Edinburgh Hotel Bar.
Support for the Steelers by the Lake podcast is provided in part by the Edinburgh Hotel Bar at 100 Meadville Street in downtown Edinburgh, offering a variety of lunch and dinner items every day, plus catering services and a large room for private parties. Information is available at 814-734-5103 or online at edinburghhotelbar.com.
The wife and I were just there last week, and the portions are amazing. So we got several meals out of what we ordered, and man, was it good knowing I had some hotel bar food for lunch the next day at work. It made my workday a little bit sweeter. So can't recommend them enough. Again, happy birthday to you, Pat. Thanks for supporting the show. And speaking of support, there have been some Steelers that are coming out not in support and in support of former quarterback and Steelers legend Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk after Mike Tomlin retired. Ben Roethlisberger had some things to say. I didn't think anything was too derogatory about what came out of his mouth, just indicating that he thought it was probably time for Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin to go separate ways. Not necessarily calling for him to be fired, just thinking that, they probably needed to go to a different direction. They did so. I don't remember him really saying anything too slanderous about Mike. James Harrison, on the other side, has said a lot of slanderous things, really doesn't seem to care for Mike Tomlin at all. And I kind of get where that came from. The end of his career didn't go the way he wanted. He wanted to retire as a Steeler. He felt like he was kind of getting pushed out the door, but that was when they drafted T.J. Watt. T.J. Watt kind of took his job. That's not really Mike Tomlin's fault. Now, what we don't know is what are the conversations that happened between them. Because we kind of heard similar things with Justin Fields when he went out the door. Like he was told he was going to be the man. Then they brought in Russell Wilson. Now he's not so happy about things. So was it a similar thing with James Harrison? We don't know. It could be that there was a conversation that was had there that James Harrison was assured that he was going to remain a starter and then lost his starting job and felt some kind of way about that. That's probably why he went and played for the Cincinnati Bengals and probably why he went and played for the New England Patriots, because he was salty about that. But then Joey Porter comes to the mix and kind of calls out both of them and says Ben Roethlisberger's not just a bad teammate, but a bad person. He called him the foulest of the foul and reminded James Harrison that you were nothing before Mike Tomlin because Bill Cowher cut you 3 times. Tomlin was the one that gave you a chance. You became a Pro Bowler. You became an All-Pro. You became a guy who had the biggest defensive play in Super Bowl history, all because of Mike Tomlin giving you a chance. And all of your success came under Mike Tomlin, and you shouldn't forget that. Also, he kind of was insinuating that these guys really shouldn't be talking trash on Mike Tomlin because A, Tomlin isn't on social media, so it's not like he can counter and stick up for himself. But B, neither one of these guys are really choir members, Both of them have had some checkered pasts, and Joey's no exception to this either, and that's kind of why he was the one to step up and point this out, because he just didn't want to hear people talking trash on Mike Tomlin anymore. And I think this was probably targeted a little bit more towards James Harrison than Ben Roethlisberger, but it's very clear that Joey has some ill feelings towards Ben Roethlisberger. Nick, a lot of guys have come to Ben's defense since these comments. We don't have anything from Ben yet, but I think this upcoming week, his next podcast, he'll probably address this. You had a couple of guys that you had jotted down that came to his defense on social media, right?
Yeah, I mean, AB put something out there on CTESPN, which is still my favorite Twitter handle of all time. But, he came out and said nothing, something along the lines of like nothing but love for 7. The part that actually stuck with me was take it from a 6th round pick. AB wasn't supposed to be anything, and he ended up being arguably top 2 receivers of all time, arguably. One of the premier names you think of when you think of Steelers football in recent history is going to be AB. Now, obviously, it didn't end the way we wanted it to. You would have liked to have gotten him a ring. The CTE definitely is there, and he's self-aware that the CTE is there. But, that's the type of guy that you would think has the better track into who Ben was. Because, Peasy played with him, sure, but he was on the defensive side of the ball. When you're both hotheads and you're on opposite sides of the ball, sometimes you're going to get into it. So you'd figure there's probably going to be a little bit of butting heads there. Devlin Duck Hodges, he came to his defense. Mason Rudolph did not. He was on the opposite end of that spectrum. But you have to figure that that's a little bit of Mason being Mason and also Duck not having the same pressure Mason did. Mason was drafted to be the heir apparent, and he never really got that shot. So you feel like there's probably a little bit of bad blood there too, because Ben didn't really seem to be probably the mentor that he could have or should have been.
Well, and it was well documented that Ben was not nice to him. He was very public about not wanting Mason to have been drafted. And he's gone out of his way to say negative things about Mason over the years. So I'm not surprised that Mason stuck up for himself in this situation. And Mike Tomlin, because let's not forget for Mason Rudolph, he was accused of being a racist by Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett excused his disgusting behavior of ripping his helmet off and beating Mason over the head with it by claiming that Mason said something racist to him and called him a racist slur. Mike Tomlin squashed that. And if it was a white head coach at the time, I guarantee you people would have just brushed right past it. But because it was Mike Tomlin, he carried the clout. He said, absolutely not. There's no way Mason said that. I know Mason. I vouch for Mason. Mason is a good guy. That has never come out of his mouth. That never will come out of his mouth. And everybody dropped it right there. It was never a topic that anybody ever questioned about Mason Rudolph again in his career. And it was very clearly a lie from Myles Garrett. So I get why Mason would, A, speak out against Ben, because Ben's been nothing but a dick to him, and stick up for Mike Tomlin, because someone tried to ruin him, not just professionally, but personally as well. And it didn't happen because of Mike Tomlin.
Absolutely. Zach Banner also came out in defense of Ben, as did Marquise Pouncey. And Pouncey's another one of those quintessential Steelers who was, a multiple-time Pro Bowler, more than likely going to end up being a Hall of Famer down the line. Just one of those guys that bled black and gold, and one of those guys that you don't take their word for granted. And I would be more quick to believe what Pouncey says about Ben than what Joey Porter says about Ben. And that's not – it's kind of a knock on Joey Porter Sr., but it's not meant to be. It's just meant to be. Pouncey is and always was a staple of the Steelers and a character guy at that. And so I would take Pouncey's word over Porter's in this instance at the very least. And those were just the ones that were easily findable for me.
Yeah.
A lot of this was kind of just comments under – some people made their own posts, which made it a little easier to find. But a lot of this was comments underneath where various sources posted that interview with Joey Porter. And so like Mason's was just like a go off and he left it at that. But Zach Banner was like, I can't wait to make a comment about this. And then he posted his own post. So like things like that were a little bit easier to find. There were other Steelers weighing in on both sides. But to me, it just seems like a lot of noise that's kind of unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like you said, I'll be interested to see what 7 does on football and when they post an episode. I think they said they're doing a little less football content, but you would think that this would have to be something that would come up. And then one other thing, Mike Tomlin does have social media. He has an Instagram, and I follow
it. He just doesn't really use that stuff too much.
Yeah.
So as we speak through this, it really shouldn't surprise any of us that Marquise Pouncey came to Ben's defense. That they were best friends, right? I would defend any of my best friends the same way that Marquise Pouncey did. I don't think that lessens his words and lessens his stance by any means, but it does put a little perspective of Marquise Pouncey, who was literally paid to protect him and became very, very close friends with him over the years. In fact, they had a pre-football game ritual of each of them having a football and trying to hit the crossbar. And backing up further and further and seeing who could hit the crossbar from further away. This is our starting center, our starting quarterback doing that. Just neat to see those kind of fun pre-practice rituals and pre-game rituals and stuff because of how close of friends they got. The one that really struck me was Zach Banner. He shared a photo of him sitting on a sideline and Ben holding him and hugging him by the head. And he mentioned that in his lowest moment professionally, Ben could not have been a better friend and a better brother. That goes a long way. For people who have had moments in their life where they're like, they don't know what's going to be the next chapter. This just changed my life dramatically. For Zach Banner, he was back to get the chance to be a starting offensive tackle. One of 64, they called it. A starting offensive tackle in the NFL. His dream come true. He blows out his knee. And his career was basically over at that point. He never got back into the league after that. That's a devastating moment, knowing that this could have ruined your best chance. Like, as a person who has gone through life-changing events where I didn't know what the heck I was going to do the next day, the next minute, the next month, the next year. Like, the people that stood up for me and that came out of nowhere and were there for me every single day, I will never forget them. I will never forget a moment of them being there for me. So I get why Zach said that, and that was the one that spoke to me the most of it. So I don't think that necessarily Joey Porter is saying things that were untrue of Ben when Ben was young. We all knew Ben was a party animal. Ben was out there doing his thing. He was single, and he was living the life of an NFL superstar who had lots of fame and lots of money and was single. He probably did some things that most people would be pretty embarrassed to know that he did. And if you believe the accusations against Ben, then I understand why Joey called him the foulest of the foul. If you believe that the legal process got it right and dropped the charges because there was no evidence, then there's no reason to say those kind of things about him. So it just depends on which side of the fence you stand. Cody did message us this morning through his puking sessions to kind of have a little bit of input on this. I said his only input would be questioning why these players are airing their dirty laundry about Ben and Mike now. Specifically Ben. Obviously, Tom and retiring may play a factor, but why Ben now? He said he was impressed with Antonio Brown and company coming to back Ben, which, we mentioned that. That's a big thing. You back your teammates. I did see that Ryan Clark has spoken on the matter and basically said everybody needs to chill out. You guys need therapy. Stop talking trash on the internet about each other. So I'm glad that that's the stance that Ryan Clark took on this, because it does feel like that's what needs to happen. So I'm hoping that Ben Roethlisberger leads by example on his show. He's got kind of no choice but to address this. And I hope that he finds a good way to squash it and move forward and say, hey, if I wronged you in the past, I'm sorry. I'm not the person now that I was then. By all accounts, Ben is a man of faith now. He's a family man with kids. He's married. He seems to be doing all the right things in this portion of his life. All of us have made mistakes in our lives. There's no doubt about that. Most of us have probably done things that we wish we hadn't done. To what extreme that is for different people is always going to vary, right? But giving people a second chance is usually a pretty good idea, especially if it looks like they're a different person than they were when they did things that they wish they had not have done. So that's kind of where I stand on the whole thing in kind of my summary. You have any more you want to talk on any of this here, Nick?
Yeah, just basically similar to your closing statement there. We see too much nowadays of people refusing to acknowledge or recognize that people can change or make an effort, or too often a disagreement or something that was said comes down to, you're a bad person and my stance on this is never going to change. You are a bad person. You have been labeled as such. You will forever be such, and there is no room for growth, no room for change, no room for improvement, no room for reconciliation, none of that.
Yeah.
And I think that, obviously we aren't in those conversations. We don't know, but I would hope that as a whole, as a country, as a world, that people start to get a little bit more moving towards putting stock in making up with one another, in going out and trying to make reparations, not necessarily in the sense of what people think of that term, but to repair relationships, to make up for things that were done in the past, to be able to say, hey, I've wronged you and I'm sorry for that and I've grown. Let me try to make that better, and let us try to heal together. And so I think that too often we see too much condemnation in this world and not enough, hey, that needs to be called out, but let's figure out how we can get beyond what happened to help you to get better if you're struggling, or to help me to get better if I'm struggling, and work together to help each other to become better people, as opposed to just, I disagree with you or what you did and you are a bad person, and that is where it's going to be for the rest of forever. So hopefully we can see a little bit more healing and a little less division.
I couldn't agree with you more on that, Nick. I think this whole country, this whole world, this whole planet needs a little bit more love and a lot less hate. No doubt about that. One thing we love here is the NFL Scouting Combine, which is right around the corner. Starts February 23rd, so a little bit over a week from today, which means Nick and I are going to be in our glory. 40-yard dashes, official measurements on all these college prospects are right around the corner. One of my favorites, the bench press. Let's see what these guys are doing out there. How hard have you been working through your college days? Are you just partying? Or are you out there putting in the work? You in the weight room? Are you on the track field? Are you keeping your diet under control? Are you going to show up and jump through the roof, or are you going to jump 3 inches less because you had 2 more burgers than you should have the night before? There's a lot of questions. We're going to get some answers the next couple of weeks, which will give us those final pieces of information for us to start doing some mock drafts for you guys. So mock draft season is upon us. It's coming very soon. And I'm sure we'll have some more to talk about for you guys next Saturday. If you have anything you'd like us to speak on, feel free to put it in the comments in YouTube, on Facebook, anywhere you find us. And don't forget, we need some 5-star reviews. We're really close to 200 subscribers on YouTube. So a few more of you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us so we can cross 200 and celebrate on the next show.
And if you've got a friend who's really into mock drafts or really into the NFL in general, but especially into the Steelers, send them our way. We'd love to have their takes in the comments. We'd love to have some engagement. We have been waiting for a long time to have a segment on the show where we go over some of the comments, some of your guys' thoughts. So we're grateful to have you listen, but we'd also love to have your thoughts so we can discuss them on the show. So drop them below. And like James said, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. And until next time, these are your hosts, Nick and James, signing off.
Peace.